The Labour Party aren't doing anything. They've got nothing really to offer. Anything that they do say, they flip-flop on, and you see it every day. They say one thing and then change their mind the next.
Does it worry you a bit, though, that the rhetoric often from politicians in London is, as Michael Gove said today, we'll just have to wait and see. There's sometimes a feeling that it's okay to say to the north of the country, well, yeah, we'll do it, but we'll do it later, or we'll do it in a different way, or like you've just said, we'll do it in a more innovative way, which sometimes means cutting costs. The north kind of gets the raw end of the deal when it comes to big infrastructure.
Well, it also comes back to an honest conversation from northern leaders with the public as well, and it's something I've talked about for years. In Northern Powerhouse Rail, I think, is an absolutely essential project for the north of England. But what nobody ever talks about is that there is nobody suggesting that that project can be delivered before the early 2040s. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I absolutely think we should be 100% doing it. But we've got to have an honest conversation with the public and say, well, let's deliver Northern Powerhouse Rail, but it's not going to be done next year. It's not going to be done in 5 years' time. It's a 15, 20-year project to deliver that type of infrastructure. That's an honest conversation that, to be frank, lots of people don't want to have, because, again, the other side of the argument is very simplistic. We need this. It's like, yeah, of course we need it, but let's also tell the public that if we get it, all of a sudden after Christmas, everything's not going to be rosy. It's going to take years and years for a catch-up of infrastructure. Again, go back to my point about Teesside, a catch-up of infrastructure in the north that we sorely need and deserve.
Have you had a guarantee from the government that if they do scrap this northern leg of HS2, that you will still get Northern Powerhouse Rail in full?
No.
Would you like to get that guarantee?
Absolutely.
Have you asked the Prime Minister for it?
I've been saying this a long time before it sounds like the government were considering cutting parts of HS2. I think that is absolutely essential, and the government needs to show and continue to show that it's on the side of northern voters. And the rhetoric around HS2, I think, is wrong. But it's there and it's real, and the Prime Minister and the government have to address that, and hopefully as part of the HS2 conversation they do that. So if you're going to cut parts of HS2 and save the government loads of money, I don't think that's necessarily about just sticking it back in the exchequer and potentially spending it in the southeast or somewhere else. It's about actually the reallocation of that to show better outcomes for the north sooner than might otherwise be realised with an expensive project like HS2.
Does it worry you a bit that you haven't had that guarantee yet from the Prime Minister, despite asking for it?
Well, I haven't overtly asked the Prime Minister for it. I mean, this has all come out in the last week or so, and I'm hoping that we're going to get some clarity pretty soon. And as we're hearing now, all we've done is talk about the north of England. All we've actually done is talk about HS2. There's a lot of good stuff going on in the north, but that's because the government aren't yet giving that clarity for us to have a conversation about other good things that are going on in the north.
Could you just ask about your model in Teesside? Because as I understand it, with the Freeport and what you've done in Redcar, your view is that rather than sort of call on the taxpayer to regenerate all these things, that you can transfer public assets into private hands and that they'll put the money in. Would that be right?
No, again, that's a simplification. In that, when you've got some of these big projects, often it's a relationship between the two, right? We see it with big business across the country, whether that's Nissan or Jaguar Land Rover's recent announcement for their gigafactory. It's a relationship between the two. It requires some government funding to be able to put the infrastructure in, to give confidence to the private sector to invest. But with a little bit of spending, and it's all relative, right, depending on what you're trying to deliver, the private sector will come in behind it. What we've never had in the north is the confidence in that infrastructure and that money that allows the private sector to say, yeah, let's go and plough in behind this, because this is exactly what everybody wants.
But I mean, in terms of the steelworks and the land, it was actually handing it over to other people, wasn't it? Taking a public asset and giving it.
Well, again, if you want to get into detail, Adam, it was never a public asset. It was owned by a Thai company called SSI that went into liquidation, and then what we've actually done is to rescue that. We ended up creating a public-private partnership to be able to rescue it. So it's always been in the private sector. It's actually now more in the public sector than it ever was. But the reason that project is so successful is because there is such a good relationship between the public and private sector.
What I want to ask you is how much private investment has actually gone in, because, as you know, a lot of people have questioned.
Incorrectly. And we've got a report that's going to come out soon that in black and white will show that the nonsense and the conspiracy theories, I believe, will 100% will show that
tell us
what's
in the report. I mean, how much?
Well, I don't know what's in the report because the report is an independent report.
You're just telling me it's going to prove that.
Because I know what the truth is, and the Labour opponents that have been spreading some pretty vicious lies and rumours about us.
Tell us what the truth is then.
Well, the truth is that we've put in £246 million worth of public money. And that's money that would have cost the Exchequer anyway, because they were wasting £20 million a year going forward forever. We've already leveraged off that £246 million over £2 billion worth of private sector investment. And if we want to talk about HS2, this is why it's important, right? This is why it's important. So that is a purely government project, HS2. Right. It is a waste of money because it has a BCR, or a government green book, evaluation of less than 1. Our project has a valuation of more than 15, and that means for every £1 of public money spent, you get £15 of private sector money. So that's a good project.
How much money have Messrs Musgrave and Corney actually invested themselves?
Well, they've put in over £200 million so far, and it's going to be hundreds of millions of pounds more, because it's a site that needs more remediation, it needs preparation, and they're going to have to spend that over the years to come. There is no more public money left, and they're aware of that, and they have to put in all of that money in the years to come.
Before we let you go, Ben Houchen, obviously there is a lot of questioning of Rishi Sunak. I think it's fair to say at this conference there's a group of 30 Conservative MPs calling for no more taxes. How helpful is it to have that kind of infighting at such an important moment as a Tory leader yourself?
I think the biggest problem we've faced as a government over the last 2 years is the Conservative Party as a whole. I mean, the Labour Party aren't doing anything. They've got nothing really to offer. Anything that they do say, they flip-flop on, and you see it every day. They say one thing and then change their mind the next. That's not the problem for the Conservative Party. The problem for the Conservative Party is they keep infighting. People just need to concentrate on the job at hand. The public don't like it, and the more they hear these types of things where you've got factions of the Conservative Party unhappy with this and unhappy with that, all that screams to the public is this is disarray, right? And that's what we're hoping to see this week. Rishi's going to give a speech later this week, hopefully come out with a very clear plan, and I would implore particularly the MPs that we have within the party to coalesce behind Rishi Sunak, because he is the only way to victory for this Conservative government at the next general election.